O tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. And thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you today. I think we all know that this is a critical time for New Zealand as we respond to the damage wreaked by the global COVID-19 pandemic. It is vital that investment in our economic recovery is well thought through and makes the most of the opportunities to build a better future which put people and sustainability at its heart. And as we observe the worsening pandemic from our relatively comfortable position of stamping out its spread, we remain committed to fending off a resurgence that can threaten our safety, well-being and our way of life. I think it's an understatement to say that it's been a difficult year for many people and businesses, and that the shadow of COVID-19 affects our actions in ways that we could not have predicted this time last year. It has also turned up some unexpected results. As we came out of lockdown, I was acutely aware of a collective fear, which I shared, of a GFC-esque housing downturn, but we have seen the opposite. Our economic recovery has been stronger than we anticipated, and we have seen house prices rise further and demand for housing outstrip the rate at which supply is increasing. This has had negative impacts on things like homelessness, the public housing waiting lists, rental stress, and people struggling to afford to buy properties. As Minister of Housing, I am acutely aware of how decades of underinvestment in infrastructure and the building of affordable homes has led us to this position we are in today. There is currently a lot of discussion about what levers can be used to address house price rises. And today I'm going to talk about one of the most significant levers we have, increasing supply. This is reliant on ensuring that we can do something about where we put housing and how we build them and how we pay for it, area that the government has put significant work into and where we still have a significant program of work to carry out. There is no quick fix. There is no one change that will make this housing crisis go away in a hurry. It will take years to increase housing supply and affordability to the point where, as we believe as a government, every New Zealander has a warm, dry home. The reasons why we're in this position are well known and have been well canvassed. Decades of failure to invest in infrastructure to service and grow our communities. A clunky, expensive resource consenting process that favours incumbents and resists intensification. A deficit of investment in the building of affordable homes and a deficit of investment of building of public housing. So what is our strategy to address this? The starting point for housing is where it goes and enabling projects to go ahead without being bogged down without undue restrictions that have little to do with environmental values. This is critical. We are committed to the repeal and reform of the Resource Management Act to reduce the timeframes and expense of the consenting process and enable more housing developments to get going. And this is work that my colleague, Minister Parker, is leading. Ensuring that we have the workforce that are sufficiently trained to build homes is another key factor. As we assessed what the greatest risks are to the building sector as we anticipated a recession, we only had to look at what happened following the GFC to know that what we could not allow, to let the building of affordable housing fall down a hole. This would not be in line with our strategic direction. The $350 million residential development fund that we announced earlier this year was a direct response to this by giving developers options to finance developments if and when needed. And we are developing the criteria around this fund, and I will have more to say on this soon. But I do want to spend some time reminding you of the other aspects of the significant body of work we have done to address housing and homelessness, and which will form the body of our work over the coming years. In short, our housing strategy. We have laid the groundwork for a substantial change in the financing and planning of infrastructure that enables communities to grow and thrive. In our first term, we established Te Tua Papa Kura Kainga, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, to lead the Housing and Urban System Work Programme and reform. We've also established Kāinga Ora Homes and Communities as the government's public housing landlord and urban development authority. These agencies are enabling a more cohesive, strategic and joined-up approach to delivering the government's vision for housing and urban development in New Zealand. We are building more public houses than have been built in a generation. In our first term, 5,670 new public housing places, 4,342 of those were new builds. We're on track to deliver over 18,000 public housing and transitional places by 2024. We are working with the building industry on the construction sector accord to increase productivity and capability, improve resilience and restore confidence. We're investing $3 billion in projects through the shovel-ready process that will stimulate urban and provincial economies. The completion of nearly 700 KiwiBuild homes and 1,000 more under construction has also enabled 2,000 market homes to be built through government initiatives. We are supporting people to buy their own affordable homes through first home loans and grants and a progressive home ownership scheme. We launched the Aotearoa New Zealand Homelessness Action Plan that has enabled the rapid rehousing of rough sleepers when COVID-19 hit, and we will support people to get into and stay in stable accommodation. And we are working with Māori to respond to whānau needs and aspiration. So what do these changes mean? The most significant levers to accelerate and support more housing are those that fundamentally change the way infrastructure is financed, planned and consented. You heard from my colleague, Finance Minister Grant Robertson, yesterday about the Infrastructure Funding and Financing Act to enable private sector finance to be used to construct infrastructure for housing and urban development and to keep debt off councils' balance sheets. This will help resolve the impasse of local councils being able to finance the infrastructure our communities need. The Urban Development Act creates a streamlined process to facilitate developments that put the interests of Māori, councils, developers and diverse communities at the heart of developments and considers housing, transport and recreational needs. The National Policy Statement on Urban Development requires councils to reduce planning constraints and plan for growth, allowing for greater intensification. The fast tracking of projects that can boost employment and economic recovery will be enabled through the COVID-19 fast track recovery legislation. These substantial law changes will change the way we plan and pay for infrastructural growth. We encourage industry, local councils, iwi and communities to consider how to use them to deliver developments that prioritise the well-being of people, address climate change and provide services and amenities for generations to come. I'm especially proud of our record on public housing. This year we committed funding to build another 8,000 public and transitional homes, which, as I said earlier, will bring the total to 18,350 by 2024. These developments, led by the government agency Kāinga Ora, encourage other developments through significant infrastructure improvements. Kāinga Ora has planned spending of $9.8 billion over the next 4 years. Its 7 large-scale projects are changing the infrastructure and housing landscape and will result in approximately 40,000 homes being built over the next 10 to 15 years. Kāinga Ora's use of off-site manufacturing is allowing both speed and more volume to be built into developments, with approximately 12% of houses being built this way. This is demonstrating the value of OSM technology to the sector and what is possible to upscale production and, importantly, build scale within the sector. Kāinga Ora is also demonstrating leadership in the building sector on lowering emissions and reducing waste, with a commitment to 6 Homestar standards for new builds. It is this kind of approach that allows us to build back better. Investment that reduces our impact on the environment and helps deliver a low-carbon future. Our work with councils to assess barriers and opportunities for housing developments in high-need areas through the Ministry of Housing and Development's place-based program is identifying the kind of momentum we need to achieve and the next steps on a regional basis. There is no one-size-fits-all. A lack of investment over many decades in critical areas like transport and the crucial Three Waters infrastructure has been a vexing problem. Central and local governments share responsibility for providing the significant investment required to fix failing or ageing infrastructure and to provide new infrastructure for expected population growth, to meet environmental standards and to address climate change. Strong investment in infrastructure is needed to address the current deficit, support growth and improve the well-being of New Zealanders. This government has shown an enormous commitment to infrastructure spending, with a commitment of $42.2 billion over the next 4 years on top of the $25 billion already invested over the past 3 years. This includes the $3 billion COVID Recovery and Response Fund, the $6.8 billion New Zealand Upgrade Programme on transport, and over $750 million on the Three Waters infrastructure. Any central government spending on infrastructure must deliver on multiple fronts. The project must be enduring and future-focused. It must create jobs, and it must represent good value for New Zealanders. We have a lot of good work to build on, but we are acutely aware as a government that there is more to do. Implementing the existing urban development initiatives and reform of the RMA to reduce costs and complexity while supporting environmental outcomes will make a big difference to how our urban areas perform in the future. Minister Mahuta has outlined to the symposium the Three Waters Reform Programme that will be crucial to ensuring we have a system-wide, enduring solutions to the quality of our water, security, management and delivery. We are continuing to work with our partners in the construction sector accord to maintain momentum of the construction pipeline and forge new way forwards to meet environmental and climate change goals. We are also undertaking work with the residential construction sector and investors to better understand the appetite for build-to-rent projects, which can provide a positive investment option that not only grows supply but provides people with much-needed housing. While the construction pipeline for residential properties is currently strong, we are well prepared to support future developments with the impact of the COVID-19 through the impact of COVID-19 through our $350 million Residential Development Response Fund. And we will be releasing the updated public housing plan in the coming months. This plan will not only provide much needed public housing, but also will provide industry with the certainty of a secure pipeline of work over the coming years. We are directing Kāinga Ora and community housing providers to build in specific locations which will better support those in urgent need of housing. We will continue to work with community housing providers who can add value by building new properties, deliver social services or operate in areas where the government is not. We will investigate new ways to address high building and construction costs with the proposed Commerce Commission market study into building supplies late next year, and working with MB to explore further ways to reduce building and construction costs. We will also address remaining legislative barriers that add unnecessary costs, risks and delays to development, with a particular focus on land use constraints such as restrictive covenants. I also want to look at creative ways of innovatively using the accommodation supplement to drive investment. So, to summarise, addressing the key barriers to urban development is not a quick fix, and it is costly. I don't think there's anyone in this room that doesn't realise that. While we have laid the groundwork for changes, the biggest results will emerge in the medium to longer term. As we recover from the initial impact of COVID-19, we are yet to see the longer term implications. We need to keep up the momentum on the settings we have shifted and do further work with local councils, communities, developers and iwi to accelerate the building of new and affordable housing. The housing shortage is a critical issue for New Zealand and remains a key priority for our government to fix. We are committed to using all the available levers to get more houses built, and I look forward to working with everybody in this room, in the infrastructure and construction sector, to make sure that we make this happen. Thank you very much.